And welcome back. We're now getting into the expert focus segment of our show. Today on our show we have Danny Flood, a very successful entrepreneur who's living the lifestyle business lifestyle. And if you didn't hear about if you didn't watch the beginning and didn't watch Danny's hero's journey to find out how a military artist went from doing that and went through the couch surfing period and kind of turned it into a ultra successful lifestyle business, you definitely want to go back and watch that. So Danny, now our folks, we're gonna get right into our expert focus segment because I know my ears are ringing. People are begging to hear this because everybody wants to understand how they can live a 10-hour week. Man, I can talk today. Lifestyle business. So without any further ado or babbling from me, what I'd like you to do is give the folks a real quick overview of what we're going to talk about in this segment. Then I'll give them the 3 bullet points, and then we'll dive right in.
Yeah, sure. So in this section, we're going to talk about how to create a location-independent business so that you can earn money online while you sleep, while you travel, go on vacation, play with your family, what have you. It'll give you the time and freedom to really do the things that you want to do, to pursue the passions that you have, and to hopefully find the ultimate higher purpose for your life in the process.
Awesome, epic. That's just, I can't wait to dig in. And part of it, I got to say something personal. Part of the reason I really wanted to have you on the show is because after looking back at my life, I realized that through everything I was doing, whether I was rich or poor, I was always living a lifestyle business. In other words, I was creating a business around whatever lifestyle I wanted to live. I mean, there was times when I was making 6 figures plus, and I really wanted to live in the big house. There was times when, I was dead broke, but I was making just enough to pay the bills. And I was happy with the lifestyle, and I was happy with, the amount of responsibilities and everything. So, so this is going to be, I can't wait to learn more because, I'm looking at taking my business, other people's business to the next lifestyle level. So I'm going to take a breath now. I only breathe once an hour, so I'll take my breath now and we'll dive right into it. We're going to talk about being a lazy programmer, creating systems, and leverage. So let's talk about the first concept here. A concept when we were prepping, we talked about as being the lazy programmer. What are we talking about here, Danny?
Yeah, sure. So the concept of a lazy programmer is that, well, okay, it's a simple concept and it's also a complicated one. So I'll give you the short answer is the lazy programmer is basically, you don't have to start from scratch with, if you have an idea, if you want to create something, you don't necessarily need to start from scratch. The concept of lazy programmer is you can start designing code yourself from the first line, or you can build off of code that other people have already laid the way for. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they make a mistake of being really kind of creative and kind of wasting time on the wrong things, when one of the most important traits of successful entrepreneurs is the speed of implementation and not being too creative and just really implementing fast. How quickly you are able to implement the processes of your would-be company is a big part of the game. And I don't know if we're going to talk about this a little more later, but there's a concept called the Cynefin framework. It's C-Y-N-E-F-I-N. And basically the Cynefin framework is made up of 4 quadrants. So it divides up work into 4 different parts. You have simple work, complicated work, complex, and chaotic. And in the last century, we've mostly been doing simple and complicated work, which basically requires you to go to college, which requires you to get a degree, but it's something that you can learn from a textbook. Entrepreneurship is not really something, the things that entrepreneurship throws at you are not things that you can learn from a textbook. So entrepreneurs tend to spend most of their time within the complex and chaotic domains where there is nothing, no blueprint for how you can do it. So if there are certain processes in your company, you need to learn how to, how can I borrow a knowledge that some other entrepreneur has already acquired or someone else has already acquired. because whenever you do something for the first time, it's very, very hard. But then to repeat it after that, it gets easier and easier and easier, and you can do it almost without a second thought. It can be systemized. So you really need to identify where those inflection points are, and where you need to be spending your time. And entrepreneurs have to sort of sacrifice small gains in order to get the large gains, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's kind of a short answer, and also more complex as you kind of get into it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the beautiful thing I think we talked about is that we won't go too much more deep into, and I'm never going to be able to pronounce that name. I want to say cuneiform, but that's not it. The process. Go ahead and repeat the name of the process again.
It's the Cuneiform framework.
Cuneiform. Okay. And here's what I was going to interrupt you for a second. I think when we were prepping, aren't you going to include something about that in your next book, or in a future book, or did you include it in one of your previous books?
No, I haven't. It's on Wikipedia if you look at it.
Okay.
But to go back to laser programmer, I'm looking at my book right now. The definition is the simplest solution is best. Embrace simplicity, and really know what to focus on. And that's why I brought in the Cuneiform framework, because as an entrepreneur, you really have to understand what your responsibilities are, and how you allocate your time, where you allocate your time. And I'd love to talk more about that, but it's such a broad, complex topic that I didn't want to get too long-winded.
No, it's okay. And I'm glad you brought it up. It's interesting because a lot of people, our viewers who stuck with us and realize that a lot of times we say things like lazy programmer doesn't always apply to programming, have realized by now that the advice Danny's just given you applies to everything. From a programming standpoint, it's the same reason why people are making boatloads of money doing WordPress templates, and it's the same reason why most WordPress sites have some sort of template to start off with, because if you had to code everything from scratch on WordPress, it's going to take you a long time and not be worth your time. The trouble with us entrepreneurs, and whether we want to live a lifestyle business or not, is the fact that we have this desire to learn, this desire to do everything. It's funny because desire comes from the word desire to sire. We always want to create things, and we sometimes let that get in the way of of progress. I mean, I'll tell everybody a quick funny story. I did this once. I happen to have a background in IT, and the short version is that I spent probably about 72 straight hours with no sleep coding something that, in the end, if I just spent a couple of bucks and 3 minutes of research, I could have bought for free. I could have basically bought, and afterwards I felt a great feeling of accomplishment, and I was also kicking everything in the room because no sleep will tend to do that to you. So the reason I bring it up is because whether it's programming, whether it's advertising, there's this new site Canva out there, which is helping people make great graphics, great images, and shortcutting it for people, that sort of thing. You gotta find the shortcuts and treat the word lazy not as it was in the old days, which is negative, but treat it with a positive and say you're smart. You're going out and looking for these things, right, Danny?
Yeah, if you can get a job done in 5 minutes, then it doesn't make sense to spend 5 hours on it. And I'm not saying to go out and plagiarize, but you can build on the shoulders of giants, as it were. And Ruby on Rails is a perfect example from the programming world. Ruby on Rails builds on all of the programming languages that came before it to make applications much easier to develop. And there's a quote from Robert Greene, which puts an emphasis on this point in the book 48 Laws of Power. He says, "Use the wisdom, knowledge, and legwork of other people to further your own cause. Not only will such assistance save you valuable time and energy, it will give you a godlike aura of efficiency and speed. Never do yourself what others can do for you." And so that godlike aura of efficiency and speed is really vital for lifestyle designers, entrepreneurs who want to survive in the new world that is coming, because the envelope is going to keep being pushed further. And so, to give you an example of like how I might do this, I always get compliments on my book covers. I design my own book covers, but what people don't realize is that I can design my book covers in maybe 1 or 2 hours. And the reason I can do that is because I use templates. I use templates from Shutterstock.com. I can go on there and search for kind of graphics that I'm looking for, and for $10 I can get really, really great design, and I can customize it any way I want. I can add other images in there, and I always, people always say your cover looks amazing, and I'm like, yeah, and they don't understand that I spent $10 and 2 hours on it. And like, this is totally counterintuitive to the way most people work, because I went to an advertising, the Art Institute. I got an advertising degree, and they were always forcing us to come up with comps from scratch. First starting with pen and paper, and it was a really long process. We'd have to come up with maybe 10 comps a week, and maybe over a period of like 4 weeks, we'd finally get like a finished logo, for example, which might work if you're in an advertising agency, working on $500 million contracts. But if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have that luxury. You don't have those kind of resources of time and money. You have to come up with the best solution in the simplest way possible in the least amount of time possible.
Yeah, exactly, and that actually flows us right, and that's epic. That is such epic advice, and that flows us right into the second point, I believe, which is create systems. So, first step, you took templates and you realized that you have to templatize everything and walk on and stand and walk on, stand on the shoulders of giants, walk on the, I love the quote, my memory's awful, so I'll go back and replay it. But then it moves into creating systems, because once you have all that, the next level of automation is systems, right?
Yeah. In my book, I'm looking through my book right now to refresh my memory. I have 2 types of businesses, which I mentioned in the book. One is an ELF business, and one is a half business. And ELF stands for easy, lucrative, and fun. So it's a business that you love to get up and work on. You really love the customers. You love the product. You love interacting with customers. You're making money hand over fist, and you feel great. A half business is one that you just kind of really feeling about. And there are different characteristics of an ELF business and a half business. And I think that you can transition from a half business, hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating business, to an ELF business. In fact, I think it's one of the best ways to do it. If you look at Tim Ferriss as an example, he had a business which was basically bleeding him dry, a supplement business. And then he realized that I could implement certain processes, I could implement systems, and find leverage points in this business. I could outsource certain things, and I could remove myself from the business. And that's where systems can really come into place. And I think to really get really good at creating systems, I think you need to have enough hands-on experience at whatever it is you're doing, so that you can find the best way to achieve the desired result. Whether it's a customer satisfaction system, so that you have the highest percentage of customer satisfaction, and you can systemize so that all of the milestones in the communication between you and the customer have been identified, and you identify certain events that happen at each milestone. That becomes your customer care system. So in my business, in my advertising business, for example, one milestone might be, I create a customer care system, and one milestone might be when a new client signs a contract. So when that event happens, I make sure that a certain event follows that milestone, that they receive like a gift from me, maybe a professional letter that invites them, has my signature on it, invites them to lays out the expectations for the project ahead, and invites them to communicate with me anytime they have any questions, and then maybe I send them like a Starbucks gift card.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something that adds that professional touch in a way that we can deliver a great result consistently, because even though that it might be like a web design business, this is a way that we can stand head and shoulders above other web design businesses, because there's a serious problem where after the contract is signed between the contractor and the client, the communication drops off after that. And that's a big complaint that clients have when they work with contractors in businesses like that. So we identified that need, identified that problem, and instilled a system in place, identified these milestones of communication so that we can deliver an excellent result consistently.
Well, and that's you know, it's funny because you said so much in there. My brain's now spinning, which is great, and that's epic. And the thing I was thinking about, so a couple things real quick. One, it's great that you did that for systems. And when you were talking about it, all I could think about was the concept, you know, that Dan Kennedy talks about. I mean, I forget if it's called the big thunk or whatever, but where you basically, you know, if you have somebody who is a large value contract, you know, you FedEx them something the day after they sign the contract to boom, you FedEx them basically a thank you box, that sort of thing, so that they know how much you care. And it's more about setting yourself apart, which is the concept I really want our viewers to get, you know, to get out of that whole thing. Whether you got the money or not to do, you know, a big package or a FedEx or something like that, find something that you can do in your current, and Danny, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it sounds like what you're saying is find something you can do in your current business that your other competitors are not doing, that you do for your clients, that sets you apart. Whether it's a letter, whether it's opening a line of communication, whether it's giving a private call-in number, just something that your competitors aren't doing that immediately sets you apart from the competition and immediately cements in the competition, or immediately cements in your client's mind that you are the right person to work with. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
In that aspect, as far as differentiation, yes. It's a way to, I mean, we can say, yes, we design better websites than the other guy, but then, you know, they're going to say the same thing about me, and who's really telling the truth? But if we're talking about differentiation here, and then I want to kind of tackle this as a two-part question. So first, I'll focus on differentiation. This kind of goes back into the idea of unique propositions and putting forth things that make your business unique. So it could be a unique sales proposition. It could be a unique experience proposition. So that's like when you go to Disneyland and everything is, you know, tailored to evoke a certain emotion from the moment you arrive, a certain feeling. That's an experience proposition. That experience you get when you go to Disneyland. It could be a unique offer proposition if you have a really compelling offer. It could be a unique safety proposition. So you know, if you offer a double money back guarantee, that's another way to separate yourself from your competitors.
Right.
So there are different ways of being unique, and one of the most obvious and still overlooked ways is to excel through service. And the second part of that question I want to add is, if you're going to create systems like this, let me ask you if you've ever been in like a situation where maybe you had an argument with someone, or maybe you had some heated conversation, and 30 minutes later you're driving in the car and you're thinking, oh, I should have said that. You know, oh, I should have said that instead of this. Or maybe you were in an interview or something and you said, I wish I had said that instead. When you have those aha moments, those become the things that you install in the system for next time. So whenever you have like something that you identify as like, oh, I should have done this, like you're going to probably do it wrong the first time. You know, it's not going to be optimal. But then you say, oh, that would have been great if I had done this. Then you document that and you put that into the system.
Epic. That is, and I think that's a great place, because as you all can tell, Danny's got much more information in the book and in other areas about creating systems. I think it's an epic place to leave, and the kind of the note I like to wrap up the create systems section on is whenever that aha moment hits, what you want to think is the next time I will versus I wish or I should. I wish and I should are very closed comments and make you feel very upset. I will, you know, next time I will is a very empowering comment. But Danny, you hit the nail on the head. I can't tell you how many times, even in my own business, it's like, okay, okay, what, oh geez, next time, this didn't happen right this time, so next time, I will, next time I will do this. So, and that kind of leads us into, I think, a little bit, maybe it's a stretch, but we'll go there anyway, into leverage. So during the third part here, we're going to talk about leverage. Danny, when you say leverage, what do we really mean here?
Yeah, sure. So I believe Archimedes said that if you give me a lever long enough, I can move the world. And leverage is essentially what separates entrepreneurs from employees. Employees have no leverage. They trade their time for money, whether it's physical work, whether it's work they have a degree for. They have a very, very minimal amount of leverage. Entrepreneurs have a responsibility to themselves, to their company, to their customers, to bake in as much leverage into their business as possible. Whether it's in the marketing systems, whether it's in the product that they deliver, we always have to strive to excel and push the envelope further, because we want to do better and better and better, because we always have to deal with competition, but most importantly, we have to compete against ourselves. So it's really about identifying where can the process be improved, where can the system be improved, and what can I do to create more leverage in this area. It could be installing software. If we have a problem, like if one really good way to identify where you can build in leverage and is to look at problems as opportunities. And to do this, all you have to do is ask why. And there's a technique I mentioned in the book. It's called the 5 whys technique. So if something's like causing stress, if there's something going awry in the business, ask why. Like, if I'm having trouble scheduling interviews, for example, maybe it's because I'm not good at this area. Maybe I need to install a scheduling app. Maybe I need to get an assistant. And leverage is really, it comes back to that concept of getting the best results for the least amount of effort possible.
Right.
And I like to call these hacks, because the 3 books I've written since Buy Your Own Island all focus on hacks. So, for example, I mean, if I can give an example of leverage, we'll go back to working out, because for years I spent 5-6 days a week working out, exercising, maybe going to the gym, working a different body part, and I kind of hit this plateau where I wasn't making progress, and then I kind of stepped back, and instead I did 1 workout per week and did it the right way, and focused on my diet well enough that I was able to make huge gains, and I gained about 15 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
And really hit my sweet spot. So another example might be if you have 3 employees who are licking envelopes, for example, and sealing them, and you only have 1 employee who's stamping envelopes, it doesn't matter how fast those 3 employees are sealing the envelopes, because you have only 1 employee who's putting the stamps on them. So that's a bottleneck. That's an example of a potential problem where you need to kind of create more leverage. So whether it's adding another employee to stamp the envelopes because they're piling up, or whether you can get software that can do it for you. That's another chance to build leverage into the process. So there's a certain point where doing more in one area is not going to create better results, but rather focusing on another area and either streamlining it or systemizing it so that you can get the desired result faster, cheaper, better quality, then you really hit the sweet spot.
Yeah, and it's so great how you tied all that back in, because really, leverage is, goes back to the first 2 things, being, a lazy programmer, finding, templates and everything, creating systems around it, and then in the end, figuring out places where you can, leverage things differently. I loved the envelopes and the licking stamp example. The example that comes to my mind, it kind of is that lever long enough to lift the world. If you've got a 1,000-pound boulder, and you've got a 2-foot teeter-totter, unless you're Hercules, you're not going to be able to push that teeter-totter down and get that boulder up, even though you have some leverage. But if you change the way you approach it, i.e. make a bigger lever or put more people on or do something else, you change the way you approach it, then you'll be able to solve the issue. And I think that, to me, It sounds like that's really the core of the leverage discussion, which is changing your approach to solving a problem you have. If the problem isn't getting solved the way you're doing it, change your approach and do something different. Whether it's building leverage or doing something different to solve the problem, right?
Yeah, and if I can also add to that too, I think leverage is what creates opportunities, opportunities to excel. And Paul Buchheit, he's the creator of Gmail. He said that hacking, we're talking about hacks here, hacking is much bigger than clever bits of code in a computer. It's how we create the future. And if you look at the history of mankind, all of the development, all of the progress came from leverage. When we discovered that, in ancient Egypt, people were moving stones with like ropes, and it was horribly inefficient. So all of the progress that happened over the span of human history came as a result of leverage, and it's the responsibility of entrepreneurs to find that leverage, to discover it, because we're operating in these complex and chaotic realms where there is no textbook for what we're doing. We have to find something new. We have to find those leverage points, and that's where the competitive advantage comes from.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because the other thing I think about leverage, there was, I know being a worldwide digital nomad, you're not watching a lot of TV because you're living the lifestyle. But there was a TV show here in America called Leverage. And the funny thing is, part of what I think of when I think of leverage, I hate to say it is blackmail, but if you think about it, it's all about having the power to change things for good or for bad. To find that one switch that, as they say, little hinges swing big doors. So, you just find that one thing to make that massive shift, that massive shift or that massive change in your, in your business and in your life. And while we know everything is progressive, if you watch the beginning of the show with Danny's hero's journey, if you didn't, you go back and watch it now. But if you did, you realize that everything builds on each other. It's not necessarily that one moment. But in a lot of cases, when you hit leverage and you can find that leverage, it's amazing what happens when you can use that leverage to change things and to really up your game, or to change, just to change the game. Especially if you want to create a 10-hour-a-week, lifestyle business. Especially as a coach, we have a lot of coaches who watch the show, and as a coach, you really need to be quote unquote a lazy programmer, like we talked about it. Whether it's with contracts, whether it's with websites, you need to be able to create systems, and you need to use the leverage that you've got to to make things successful. So before we wrap it up, and before I tell everybody what we need them to do next, Danny, I've got a quick question for you. You referenced your book a couple of times. I want to make sure, is the book you were looking at, the new book you and I talked about, is upcoming, or is it from a book they can buy, or is it from that book I'm about to tell everybody to go get a free copy of? Where does it fall?
At the moment, I have 4 books available on Amazon. Buy Your Own Island, which is the first one I wrote, which I mentioned. And then I have 3 other books which focus on hacks. The last book I wrote is a book on hacking email. So it's basically like a systemized process for email outreach so that you can promote your business, your brand, your book, what have you. And the book that I'm working on currently is a book on sleep hacking. So basically it's my own personal quest to overcome my almost lifelong persistent sleeping problems.
And that's gonna be an epic book to read. We've got one more question. We're about to offer everybody a free copy of Buy Your Own Island. When you talked about lazy programmer and creating systems, and I believe leverage, you kind of referenced, you were looking back a little bit of notes in your book. I just want to know, is it in Buy Your Own Island, or is it in one of your other books? I want our audience to hear this, because if it's in one of your other books, I want them to buy your books. So the stuff we were talking about, lazy programmer, creating systems, and leverage, is it in Buy Your Own Island, or is it in the other books that you've got out there?
You can go to section 3 of the book Buy Your Own Island, and that is on. Starts on. I don't know about the movie book, but it's page 151 of the PDF, And that focuses on how to build a location-independent business, how to build a lifestyle business, and really identifying the core characteristics, common characteristics of successful location-independent entrepreneurs, and really focusing on that and learning how you can build a business the same way. As far as the other books, my second book is if you are keen to freelancing, earning active income through freelancing. It's a book on how to acquire customers through online portals such as Upwork, which is a freelancing platform, and to acquire high-paying clients. My fourth book is called Hack Email, which is also very instructive if you want to kind of succeed in the online game, at least today's online game, is the way it's evolving.
Excellent. So here we go. BuyYourOwnIsland.com/audiobook. I've been talking about this for the last couple of minutes. So there, we've got the link on the screen. You can head out there. Yeah, audio dash. Yep, audio dash book. The good news, I'm sorry, I had to swallow. The good news is it's on the screen, so when I mispronounce everything, at least they can see it. So for those of you who come back. If you're not watching, look on the screen. But head over to the link on the screen, and you'll be able to download a free copy of Buy Your Own Island. Today we've been talking to our epic guest, Danny Flood, who's created a 10-hour-a-week lifestyle business. He's traveled the world, been in over 30 countries, coming to us live today from Bangkok, that great Oriental city. I'm not going to sing the song, but for those of you who grew up in the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. Danny, you've been an epic guest today. We've talked about your hero's journey. We've talked about being a lazy programmer and creating systems and using leverage. I want everybody to go out, go download the copy of the book, buy Danny's other books, do whatever you can, get to know this guy. Danny, real quick before I wrap up and roll the credits, any last words of wisdom you want to leave with our audience today?
No, I don't. If you want to get in touch with me, go visit my blog as well, openworldmag.com. I have a podcast as well. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook. You can look me up, Danny Flood, or email me at danny@openworldmag.com. And if you use the concepts that I talk about in my fourth book, Hack Email, then you're more likely to get a good result from me.
Epic. Well, once again, Danny, thank you for being epic guest today. For all you viewers, thank you for being epic viewers and watching today. And until next time, make it an epic day.
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now. You'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.